This is me trying to get the lighting right. I went out for this and I bought a ring light. I went and I bought a camera and a ring light, and I haven't used either of them yet, just for this video. I recently released a script to my Instagram because people ask me what I'm writing these days. I've taken a big step back in a lot of things to work on myself, but I'm never gonna stop writing. I've actually done a lot of writing just for myself because I love to do it, and it is the blood in my veins, and it's the thing I love more than anything else is movies and stories. I wrote this script and I put it online because I was like, if anyone's interested in it, they'll read it. And if they're not, you know, it's free. They don't have to. And a lot of people actually read it and downloaded it, and I got all these questions about it. The screenwriter, you're sort of an invisible wheel. Like, social media and me have had a very, I would say, overall negative relationship, but it has led to people actually reading my work, which for screenwriters is an incredibly rare pleasure and something I value at a deep, heartfelt level that I cannot effectively communicate. I find that YouTube and social media is all a performance, and I am less and less comfortable with performing sincerity. I got so many questions on my Instagram about the script that I was like, I can't just like fill up my Instagram story with this. I did like a poll on my Instagram, like, should I just make a video? Everybody said yes. It's like, why not, you know? Like, why not, baby? Why not, baby? Cool, this is my new brand. A thing happened where I ran out of battery on my camera while I was shooting somewhere else. And I'm not a YouTuber and I don't have a production budget for this, so I sort of am just gonna do it in 2 different locations. If you're interested in hearing the answers about the Henchman, this will be a rewarding video for you to watch, baby. Buddy, you little buddy. Spoilers for a script that will probably never be a movie. Spoilers for the Henchman. So the question that I got by far the most is, what inspired the script? And that question is never easy to answer, because the way inspiration works for me, and I know for other people, is rarely, for me, what happens is I generally have an idea for a moment. I'll have an idea for an individual moment or scene, and then we'll start thinking about it and talking about it, and it'll get in my head and I'll write some of it, and a movie will like grow out of that like a seed. And then only after I'm done do I realize all the work I did. The moment that inspired this script actually takes place in the gas station. And I know that's like not an interesting answer to what inspired this script, but I have a more interesting answer for you. To me, ironic superheroes are done. I'm sick of subversions of the superhero trope. I personally am at a space I never thought I'd be at, where I'm just kind of sick of superheroes generally. 17-year-old me would kill himself to hear me say that, but it's true. I think every obvious statement you can make in a postmodern way about superheroes has been made. And ironically, the person who did it best didn't subvert anything. And that's Alan Moore with Watchmen. Watchmen treats the superheroes like they're cool while treating them like they're human. Dan Dreiberg is like the best example of this, the Night Owl. He's a fat loser. Do not fuck with him. He is also Batman. It creates this feeling of depth and texture that is so beautiful and wonderful. What I'm about to say should not be construed in any way as negative, but something like the movie Super.
Don't butt! Who do you think you're fooling? I just saw you.
Or Kick-Ass. The comic and then television show The Boys. Pretty much everything that does superheroes like superheroes. But what if it's fucked up, dude? Fuck superheroes. They're all murderers. They're all addicted to drugs. Something about that mentality, when they were first doing it, it was groundbreaking. But in the modern superhero landscape, it's ubiquitous.
This is a pretty hardcore origin story.
Everything is postmodern. Everything is a comment on a comment on a comment on a comment.
Deadpool. That sounds like a fucking franchise.
Basically, the way I felt is there's nothing left to say within the superhero genre as its own genre. And to now innovate in this space, you have to literally pull superhero out of superhero and plug in drama. The Joker movie I enjoyed it. I loved it. It's not a Joker movie. That character has nothing to do with the comic book character, the Joker. Joker is a movie about a mentally ill man
Talking to me?
who is a narcissist and insane
When I have a wet dream, all that happens is I wake up covered with sawdust.
and murders a TV show host,
Now, if everything works out, you should be out of here by the very latest 12:30.
and it starts a riot. He's not a supervillain. It's real, gritty superhero stuff. But to get that real grittiness, there's this feeling that you have to sacrifice the superhero stuff or do it ironically, like Kick-Ass. I thought, what if you did a superhero movie for actors? A movie that is defined by the performances in it instead of by the action sequences. There isn't a superhero movie like that right now. The only mainstream superhero movie, no, it's just the only one. The only superhero movie that has come close to having moments of what feel like real non-superhero drama in a genre-breaking way is fucking Wonder Woman. The scenes with her and Chris Pine where they're like alone and suddenly it's like a romantic drama of people like bantering and the tension of the movie is lifted and you're watching like before sunrise. Now that's cool, that's innovative, and no one even noticed it because the movie was just good. And they were like, wow, good movie. But that little piece is something that's so lacking in so many superhero properties. I wanted to write a movie about mental illness and identity, about what good and evil even mean in the face of actual insanity, juxtaposed against the superhero tropes, not making fun of them, but taking them deadly serious. That was what excited me about writing The Henchman. As I got into it, I got to a place in my head where it's in the script. What if you had to do your supervillain origin monologue to your mom? That feels like a scene actors could do a lot with. Ooh, I should write this script. And that's why I wrote that script. All the answers are not going to be as long-winded as that, I assure you, but I had a lot of questions. What was the function of the gas station scene? To show that she's definitely evil? The gas station scene serves many masters. Number one, to show that they aren't safe in a public place. Number two, to show that Copper is a thug with a heart of gold. Of course, we'll soon realize that he's actually an undercover cop with a heart of a lot of different shades of gray. But in this moment, he doesn't want to hurt this old man, and we like him. And it's sort of, I hate using this term, a save the cat moment. I needed a moment that showed that Copper cared about human life, because we've just seen him basically permanently scar a forest ranger. I needed a moment where we see Copper's humanity placed against Elena's humanity, Mr. Gallium's humanity. And I also wanted to show that he is not that good at this. That situation flies out of control immediately, implying that he can't control her, implying that every scene from now on in which there's the Copper, Gallium, and another human being, that human being is probably going to die. I wanted to establish that expectation. Lastly, the moment with the little girl and also her unnecessary violence and irrational decision to come into the gas station all serve one master. Mr. Gallium is, once out of the suit, a relatively small, somewhat frail, constantly vomiting person. She doesn't cut an imposing figure. Until you get that poster image of her in normal clothes, all dirty and stained, with a supervillain helmet on. And she fucking melts someone alive. Is this interesting? Is this what you wanted? This is me on YouTube? I'm really enjoying this, but you don't like me? Okay. I was already answering questions so long. So I got a lot of people asking how long The Henchman took to write. About 2.5 months, because I would take breaks very regularly. Do you ever write with actors in mind? I never do. The relationship between a writer and an actor is extremely unique and is entirely shaped through the director. In truth, actors will modify and change your script to a degree that if you've never had something of yours produced before, you'd think would make you uncomfortable, and sometimes it does. However, actors are first and foremost your collaborators. They are there to take all this friggin' ink and digital nothing and give it emotion, give it humanity, that no matter how good of a writer you are, doesn't exist on the page. Reading a script will never be the same as watching a movie. It's a totally different experience. And an actor's first job is to translate your stuff into a real physical entity. When you think about film, you almost always think of it about the art of cinema as one thing, right? But it isn't one thing. So that said, although I do not write with actors in mind, who would I want in it? I mean, who, in theory, would I want to collaborate on these characters? For Copper, Jeremy Strong, Kieran Culkin, Matthew McFadden, anyone from Succession, basically, are all totally different versions of the character. James Ransome, I think he does a wonderful, desperate, afraid thing. I think, you know, there's so many different versions of Copper because Copper is so many different people throughout the movie. I don't know if you're familiar with my other work, but one of the archetypes I write, and I write it a lot, is the eccentric, overbearing, brilliant but flawed, often mentally ill or socially awkward or uncomfortable character. That character with a special skill. That character shows up in a lot of things I write. There's a character like that in the original sequel to Chronicle that never got made. There's a character like that in my script Higher. Victor Frankenstein in the script for Victor Frankenstein is like that. Dirk Gently is like that. But that archetype shows up again and again and again, the sort of damaged genius. And Gallium is, you know, when's the last time you saw an actress lose it the way she does in this movie, in a superhero movie? It needs to be someone who's comfortable with going so big and so crazy and so intense that I don't know. It would be a transformative performance, I think, and I mean not transformative for their career, but they'd have to transform into Elena Christensen. I mean, it's a heavy practical makeup, it's special effects, it's body work, it's a lot of vomiting, it's a lot of intense emotion. You have to play her both when she's stable and when she's being obsessive. It really is, it's a big part. I don't know, it's one of those parts that if you, at the right scale of a movie, I feel like I would want to believe that it's one of those parts that that actress could take it and be like, boom, this movie's about me, fuck Copper, and have her in the Netflix picture. You know, I think she has to be in the little Netflix or Amazon thing anyway. So I don't know who that is. If you have ideas, tell me on Instagram. And then The Miracle. A zillion people for some reason want to know who The Miracle is to me. I think that's a great space for like a Joe Manganiello to come in and give a nuanced performance. But, you know, there's also a version of that character that's like Tom Hanks. When The Miracle shows up, you don't want it to take you out of the movie, but you do want it to be someone who you did not know was in the movie, because The Miracle is not in the trailer. Maybe the one shot of him coming through the ceiling and grabbing Copper by the nose, but you don't get a look at who plays him. I see him as like an archetypal, masked Superman. Why did Cooper go back to the house? I think he wanted to save Alana from Mr. Gallium. What a beautifully worded question. You are exactly correct. This is a bigger thing about the script, but The Henchman is almost entirely about identity. The identities that other people create for us and the identities we create for ourselves, and how the mixing of those can be toxic and make us crazy. But like, for example, did you notice that almost every character in the script has a dual identity? Copper actually has a triple identity as Copper, Jake, and Steve. A supervillain cartoon henchman, and then a dirty, like, low-life thug who's trapped here, and he's kind of an idiot. And then the real guy, an incredibly cunning, sly, quick-witted, smart, crafty, survivalist type dude. And of course, Elena has Mr. Gallium. Her public image, her public identity is so divorced from her that it's male. People so don't understand who this person is that they have a complete misread of her. And the script is spent primarily exploring her. And she's somewhere on the bipolar spectrum. She's obsessive. I don't like to diagnose my characters because I don't like to diagnose people. That theme of identity, who are you, what do you do, is what you do good or bad, runs through almost every important character in the script. Young is a sweet, kindly, just passerby. No, he's not. He's a vicious and dangerous, highly trained agent with a gun the size of his fucking arm. There's like a nice old attendant in the shop. Oh, look at that. He's a fucking army ranger. Even the fucking ranger in the beginning of the movie says she doesn't have a gun. And then almost fucking wins. The ranger almost ends the movie in the first 10 pages. Is Fidel Ahmad good or bad? When he shows up, he seems completely removed and casual, and then we realize he's not even on the side we thought he was. The only character who doesn't have a dual identity, other than her parents, is the fucking miracle. And that's because I let the miracle be one-dimensional, because I needed him to be good. Everything the miracle says is good, and yet it kind of feels like he's an asshole, even though he doesn't say anything rude or mean, and is in fact helpful and kind. But when you read it, if you read it, it kind of felt like that guy's a fucking dick, right? Well, that's because he only has one identity. And so him being a superhero to a character we've seen 8 sides of, it's like, dude, fuck off. Did you know the way you were going to end this one from the beginning, or did you decide as you wrote it? I knew that it would end with Copper getting superpowers. The game of writing Copper is a guy who pretty much always makes the right call. I wanted to write a protagonist who makes no mistakes the entire script and is punished and beaten and fucked over and tortured and destroyed despite doing nothing wrong. I really wanted to write a guy like that because I thought it would be fun to watch the world just crash down on him and we're just watching him squirm. And meanwhile, Elena doesn't even seem to understand the scope of what's happening to her. So that juxtaposition, I was like, well, it has to end with him having a way out of the situation. It has to end with him having superpowers. This is so like weird and amateur that I'm switching between these two like totally different setups. And then this is so like stylized and the other one is so like sparse. I'm not good at physical production. The next question is, why do so many of your stories have a government agent of some kind chasing after the main character? And that is, I feel a little too seen by you saying that. American Ultra, Mr. Right, The Good Time Gang, the script for Chronicle 2, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. I mean, like the list goes on. And then many, many, many unproduced things. And even like arguably the script for Bright has an FBI or CIA presence. I am fascinated by bureaucratic response to a magical, realistic situation. I really think someone whose character is separate from their mission is the most interesting type of secondary character. It's not just a government agent whose personality is that they follow orders. You'll notice that in all the stories I just listed of mine, the agent who is pursuing the lead is often eccentric or strange, even in their own way. If I'm being completely honest, it's also just sort of a cheap trick to raise stakes. A lot of the times I'll have an idea for a character or a moment, and I'm like, but what would make it even bigger? The answer is, what would make it bigger? The fucking patriotic power of the United States government, baby! Example of Young in The Henchman was, I wanted to show you how fucked and alone Copper truly is. You can't trust anybody. I got a lot of questions about the music. Normally, I would never write music into a script. I find that every time I write music into a script, with the exception of David Bowie in Chronicle, and of course Dirk Gently, where I was allowed to basically put in whatever music I wanted because I was the showrunner. When you write music into a script, you are taking an insane risk. The sort of risk you can usually not afford to take as a screenwriter, which is you are taking the risk that the person who is reading the script doesn't know the song you're referencing. And that takes you right out of the experience of the read. Because best case scenario, they know the song and they glide right by it and it adds pretty much nothing to the story. Worst case scenario, they don't know the song and they're like, what the fuck? And then even if they then stop and Google it and listen to it, they have been drawn away from the page and back into the real world. When you have someone reading your script, it's not like a book. You don't want anyone to be putting down your script to go do research. Scripts are, by their nature, an ephemeral thing. So you really want people to like download it and just bump them as little as possible. The reason there's music in The Henchman is that The Henchman is not really written to be produced. The Henchman was written because I wanted to write it. The Henchman has not one, not two, but 3
Islands in the stream, that is what we are.
needle drop moments in it. And I guess I just love those songs. I think I just didn't care. A lot of people asked, am I going to try to sell this? Is this something I'm going to try to get made? I'm not really doing that right now. I'm writing for myself. I'm working on myself. That's going to be my focus this year. I am probably going to be releasing more writing. Also, what's interesting about The Henchman is I don't know, the digital landscape has gotten so weird with movies of this size that a part of me doesn't even know where it fits. I guess it's like a direct to Amazon movie, a direct to Netflix movie. I don't know who finances it. It doesn't feel like a theatrical movie. It's meant to be The Henchman's meant to be very, very small and intimate. It has beats from a superhero movie, but I play them at like the most micro level, except for when she tortures those mercenaries that Fidel Ahmed has. There were questions about the significance of the Roadrunner. So when we first see the Roadrunner is pinned by Mr. Gallium and unable to escape. Mr. Gallium's armor kind of falls over on it, and it doesn't crush it because it's kind of in a bush, but you know, the Roadrunner's like flapping and trying to get away, and Copper frees it, and the Roadrunner leaves. The Roadrunner symbolizes freedom. Every character we meet in this script is trapped into a situation they don't want to be in. No one is having a good day in the script of The Henchman. Not one person. However, that Roadrunner, if it is the same one that Copper keeps seeing, is free. He freed it at the beginning of the movie instead of freeing himself. Instead of running away, his one opportunity to truly leave Mr. Gallium before he even knows Elena Christensen, he doesn't take. He frees the bird and stays with the villain. So every time he sees that Roadrunner, and he sees it 2 more times, rule of 3. He sees the Roadrunner 3 times, rule of 3. So the Roadrunner represents the opportunity he gave up in order to try to find something better. The idea of Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, and this is a script that takes place out in the desert with a supervillain with big plans and a guy who wants to get away from it.
I like the way that rolls out. Wile E. Coyote, super genius.
I do weird stuff like that in my scripts because I'm just a weird guy. It's not because I'm a good writer. I feel like I answered a lot of the questions that were specifically about The Henchman. I want to take this moment to, as sincerely as possible through a screen, say thank you if you read it. There's no greater joy in my life, truly no greater joy than being read as a writer and telling stories. I am a ring baby.